All right, so later on we will have a demonstration about user-defined methods in Java, the creation of user-defined methods. But now we have to know the concept first. And in this topic, we have the following objectives in which these objectives are already shortened into two that is shown in our learning outcomes. Okay, now in Java, there are predefined classes which are already organized in the libraries. And these predefined classes has several predefined methods. And to import the predefined classes in our program, we need to import the package using the import statement. And it has the method type. And this type specifies the data type of value returned by a method. Now, here is a table which shows some predefined mathematical methods and name constants like e and pi and abs, pow, min, max. Okay, those are some of the few predefined methods which belongs to the class math. And these two constants here, e and pi, can be already used in any program. Okay? And the methods like abs returns the absolute value of x. And the x value or the value to be returned is depending on the x value provided. For example, the absolute value of negative 67 is positive 67 and it's an integer. The value negative 67 here being passed as actual parameter is an integer. So therefore, it returns the integer value of absolute 67. Now, another example of using absolute or abs predefined method is passing negative 75.38 to the abs method, and that returns the value of positive 75.38 because the absolute value of negative 75.38 is positive 75.38. And this is of double data type. Therefore, it returns the value of another methods are max, min, and pow. Max returns the larger of the two parameters. For example, max where 15 and 25 are being passed as arguments and returns the value 25 since the max or the maximum value among the two numbers is 25. Min is a predefined method belongs to the class math which returns the smaller value of the two parameters. For example, min with 15 and 25 as arguments returns the value 15 since 15 is smaller value among the two. Another method is pow with two parameters x and y. This returns the value of type double, which interprets as x to the power y. So we have, for example, we have an example of pow with 2.0 and 3.0 as parameters returns the value 8 since 2 to the power of 3 is 8. Now another class like character class has the following methods like is digit, is letter, is lowercase, is uppercase. Okay? Is digit is used to return true if the parameter is a digit. And take note, the argument here will receive a character parameter. Okay, like this one, character 8 is being passed as argument in the method is digit. That's verifying if this is a digit. And it returns true since the argument is a character, or I mean is a digit. Okay, the character here being passed is a digit. And passing this asterisk as a character returns a value false. The is letter is used to verify if the argument is a letter or not. Okay, which returns true if the value being passed is a letter. Otherwise, false. Just like evaluating character A is letter returns true. And this asterisk returns false. Is lowercase, that's checking if the argument is in lowercase. Okay, it returns true upon passing small a as a character argument for is lowercase. Okay, now let's talk about the user-defined methods. And for the user-defined methods, we have void methods and value returning methods. For the value returning method, we need to have the syntax of modifier like public, private, protected. Okay, the return type, which describes the return value of this method, can be an integer, double, character, string, or even a reference type or an object type. After the return type is the method name. A method name is any legal identifier. Okay, after the method name is a pair of parentheses. Between the parentheses is you can enumerate the formal parameters. Okay, this is our formal parameter list. And to start, the body of the method is we have a pair of curly braces. And can write the statements here for this method. Now, for the value returning method, it can be used in expressions. For the method call in a value returning method, the value being returned will be used for calculation or for futures purposes. So you can save the value to a certain variable, for example, or print the value right away. So in user-defined methods, we need to have the modifiers like private, public, protected, static, abstract, and final. Public, if you want that this method will be accessed outside the class. Private, protected, we will talk this later on the later module. Okay, and a as an overview, private, from the word private, it's private within the class. Okay, protected, it's between private and public. Okay, return type, we need to specify the return type for our value returning method, okay, which describes the value being returned. The method name is any legal identifier in Java. Okay, that is for your method name. Now, you may have the formal parameters in your value returning method. Okay, and enumerate the formal parameters in the formal parameter list. And this is the syntax for enumerating the formal parameters. You have the identifier, and of course, specify the data type, like int num1. Okay, int a, int b, double c, for example, double number. Okay, you can enumerate as many identifiers for your formal parameters list. So for the method definition, of course, to execute the statements, we need to call the method. So we have the method call. And the syntax for the method call is the method name with a pair of parentheses. inside the pair of parentheses, you have the actual parameter list. Okay? The actual parameter list must match the number of the identifier in the formal parameter list. Okay? In the actual parameter list, you may have your expression or variable, and that value will be passed to be received by the formal parameters. In the value returning method, you need to have the return statement. So, for example, placing a statement return expression, okay, where this expression contains the value to be returned. Now we have the method larger. Okay, and this is our method definition for our method larger. And using the access specifier, public static, and the method return type is double. So it's expected that this larger method will return the value of double. And there are two formal parameters here, and they are of type double. The method body contains the local declaration of max that is of type double, and the methods identifying the values of x and y. And this returns the value of the larger number, which is stored in the local variable max. Take note, since this method specifies the return value of double, to check the return, I mean the type of value to return, dapat double sad. Okay? Now, identifying the various parts of the method, try to familiarize. For the method heading, this entire line here is the method heading, where in the method heading you have the modifiers public static. The return type of the method is double, method name is larger, and this is our formal parameters list, where x and y are the formal parameters. The method body is starting from the opening curly brace and ended in the closing curly brace here. The local variable is max with of type double. And the return value or method return value is the value of max, okay, in the return statement. Remember the parts of the method. Okay, so for executing the method definition is by calling it. So we have the method call. This statement of calling the method larger and passing these two values here as actual parameters. And this is expecting to return a value of double in which the value is being assigned in a variable num. So its value will be used for calculations, for later's purposes, or for printing. Okay? You can call the method many times. So one method definition can be called many times. Just like this one, another method call for larger, passing the value of num1 and num2 as actual parameters. Okay? Another method call for larger, passing 34.50 and num1 as actual parameters. Now, the flow of execution for the method is starting from the main, because upon compiling and running the program, the interpreter will directly go to the main method and where that main method may contain method call. Okay? User-defined methods execute only when called. And call to method transfer control from caller to called method. So from the main method, if there is a method call, it will go to the method definition and perform or execute the statements there. After exiting the method definition, the interpreter will go back to the main method and execute the other statements. Okay, so another type of method is a void method. This is similar in structure to value returning method, but without specifying the any primitive type or reference type, but with a keyword void. Call to method is always standalone statement. So you cannot use for calculations for the void method because it does not return a value. Okay? It's standalone statement for the method call in this void method. And you can use return statement to exit method early, but that is not a requirement for the void methods. Okay? This is the syntax for void methods with parameters. We have the modifier like public, private, static, and the void keyword is being used. Okay, followed by the method name and a pair of parentheses. Inside the parentheses is your formal parameter list. Okay, again, the formal parameter list, you must have the data type and the variable. Okay, now, same as with the user-defined method, upon executing the void method, you must have the method call. Okay, the method call must be in this format, the method name and the actual parameter list. Again, the number of actual parameters here must match on the number of formal parameters in the method definition. Now, you can use primitive data types as parameters. Okay, and this formal parameters receives a copy of its corresponding actual parameters because in the actual parameter, in the method call, you are going to pass the value. Then, it will be received by the formal parameters. If a formal parameter is a variable, it of a primitive data type, the value of actual parameter is directly stored and cannot pass information outside the method. It's one way and provides only one-way link between actual parameters and formal parameters. If your formal parameter is a reference variable, the copy of value, it will copy the value of corresponding actual parameter. And the value of the actual parameter is the address, not the exact data. Okay, the address of the object where the actual data is stored, meaning the address on where the object is stored in the main memory. And both formal and actual parameter refer to the same object. It must match also if you are passing the actual parameter as object. Therefore, the receiving formal parameter must be a reference type also. Okay. Now, it can return, reference variable can return more than one value from a method because it can contain properties of the object. When passing address would save memory space and time relative to copying large amount of data. Yes. Now, talking about methods, which includes some identifier, it matters to the scope. Okay, that is local identifier declared within a method or block, which is visible only within that method. It depends on the scope on where did you declare the identifier. So if it is declared locally, so its scope is local. If it is declared globally, so its scope is global. Just like this. Okay? So we have a method illegal identifier declaration where x is being declared as integer in inside this method. Okay? But we have a block here, a pair of curly braces. Inside the curly brace, we have a declaration of double x. This is illegal since x is already declared here. And the scope of x is including this block. Okay? So the scope of x is including this whole block here, including this inner block. Alright? Did you get the idea? Now, for example, if we are going to remove the declaration of x here, okay, and let this x declared in this inner block, can we use x in the outer block? Like, for example, we have x plus plus. Is this correct or not? Let's go to method overloading. You can overload a method as long as of different signature. Now, for the method overloading, okay, like more than one method can have the same name. Two methods are said to have different formal parameter lists if both methods have different number of formal parameters. Like for example, the first method has only one parameter and the other method has two. Then if the number of formal parameters is the same, then the data type of the formal parameters in the order you list must differ in at least one position. For example, the first parameter for the first method specifying integer. The second parameter must have two parameters like integer and double. Okay? And also, it will allow you to create several methods within a class with the same name but of different signature. The signature talks about the method name and its formal parameter list. Take note that signature does not include the return type of the method. Okay? Does not include the return type. Just like this, okay, we have the following method headings. That's correctly overloading the method XYZ. Okay, the same method name is being used for the four methods. The first method doesn't have the formal parameter list. The second method has two formal parameters and double. Okay, integer and double data type of the parameters. The third method has two parameters, but the first parameter is of type double and the second is integer. So it's different from this one since we have int and double and this is double and int. It's different. The fourth method is having the three parameters. Okay? Int, double, and character. So they are not the same and they are correctly overloading. Again, you can overload the method but must follow the requirements that is of different signature. Now, we have two methods here method A, B, C that are incorrectly overloading. Why it's incorrect? They have the same formal parameter list. Okay, int x and double y. Here, int and double also. Okay, they have the same signature, the same method name, and the same signature. So it's illegal. It's incorrect. And the compiler will generate a syntax error for this. And take note, even though that return types are different, okay? Remember, signature doesn't talk about or does not include the return types. And that ends this one. And now let's go to the demonstration. So for the demonstration, for example, let me use the name like demo sample method. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. And we have the main method where we are going to place our method call. But first, we have to create a user-defined method. For example, the purpose of this program is to accept, I mean, to calculate the sum of the two numbers, for example. So for using the user-defined method, we need to create the user-defined method in any other method, like using the modifier, public, static, and for example, this method will return a value of integer, and the name of the method is sum, and specifying the formal parameters like two formal parameters of type integers, and this must return a value of the two numbers, return a plus b. Okay? Since we are specifying an integer return type, therefore we must return a value of type integer. Now, to execute this method definition, we need to have the method call. So the method call, for example, we're going to place it inside the main method. Like, so the format of the method call is the name of the method and the actual parameters. So for the actual parameters, since there are two formal parameters here, we must have to specify two actual parameters also. For example, okay, it can be a variable or the value, for example, like 5 and 6. And these values will be passed to the formal parameters. So A and B here will receive the values 5 and 6 respectively. Okay, since we are using the value returning method, the value to be returned can be printed directly or can be used for calculation. For example, we will be using a variable sum, for example, or for example, without confusion, we will be using another variable like a. A. For example, the value being returned for this sum method call will be stored in an a variable, and where the value of a will be displayed here. By the way, the there are IDEs that accepts combination of few letters, okay, like S out for system that out print in, okay, will automatically generate the statement for system print line. Okay, S out tab used for that. Okay, and I believe some IDEs also like Eclipse, Blue Jays will accept that key combination. And for example, concatenating the value of A here will be allowed to display the result, which is 11. Okay, so you can directly print the result here. Okay, the same result, it will display the value 11 concatenated after A. Now, for example, overloading this sum will allow you to create the same method name but of different signatures. So for example, public static int sum also with different signature. For example, with three parameters, for example. Okay, with three parameters of both are integers. Okay, int B and C. Now, again, we need to return the value. So return example A plus B plus C. Okay, so this is still acceptable. So the methods will be executed depending on the method call being issued in the main method. So for example, in this case, since in the actual parameter list, there are only two, so the interpreter will look for a method definition having two formal parameters, which is this one. So this method call is referring to this method definition. And if ever we have another method call like A1, okay? Sorry, let's try to use this one, A2, and concatenating the value of sum of A, A plus A, and 10. Okay, so for example, and here we need to concatenate the value to return. So here, since there are three actual parameters in a term of a variable, an expression, and the actual value, so there are three variables, it will look for a method definition having three formal parameters, which is this one. Okay, save, compile, and run. Okay, by the way, using the NetBeans IDE upon writing the code, it will automatically compile your program, checking the tax error, for example. Okay, so it will display the value 43. So this is the value being returned for this method call. Okay? Now, if using the void method, it is standalone. For example, a public static void okay. For example, minus. Okay. So for minus, where there are two parameters also, and a. Okay, it's standalone. It's not necessary that we need to have the return statement. For example, inside this minus method definition, we're going to display right away the difference of A and B. Okay, so here A minus B result will be directly displayed. Okay, save, and must be concatenated. Save, and for executing this method, we must have the method call. That is, so the method call just directly put a statement for the method call of this minus. So minus with two parameters like A, okay, A and 5. Okay, so in this case, the compiler and the interpreter will look for, the interpreter will look for a method definition having a minus name. So this is the method definition having a minus name with two parameters. Okay, A is, which is an integer, and 5, which is an integer. So, and it is referring to this one. So A and 5 will be passed here. Okay, that will be received by A variable and B variable. By the way, by scope, this A is different from this A. Okay, try to run. And we have the value 6 for the void method. All right? Any questions so far?